You explained yourself again today. Someone questioned your decision, and before your brain could stop it, your mouth opened. The words poured out. You gave reasons. You gave context. You rearranged your thoughts to make them easier for someone else to digest. You softened the edges. You made sure they understood. You made sure they approved. And the moment you finished, you felt it. That sinking, that quiet shame you cannot name but always recognize. You explained yourself again, and you lost something you will never get back. You lost authority. Not the kind that comes from a title or a position, the kind that lives in the space between what you decide and what you say about it. The kind that makes people stop asking questions, not because they fear you, because they respect you too much to assume you owe them answers. Machiavelli wrote about this 5 centuries ago. He watched princes crumble, not on the battlefield, not in the courtroom, at the dinner table, in the hallway. In the quiet moments where a man of power opened his mouth one sentence too many and revealed that underneath the crown, he was begging for approval. Most men never see this happening to them. They think explaining is communication. They think justifying is maturity. They think making people comfortable is leadership. It is none of those things. It is surrender wrapped in vocabulary. And today, we are going to cut it out of you like a tumor. But first, you need to understand something uncomfortable, something no one in your life has ever told you, because the people around you benefit from your explaining. They benefit from your openness. They benefit from you laying yourself bare every time they raise an eyebrow. You were trained to do this. Not by accident, not because the world wanted to help you communicate better. You were trained to explain yourself because compliant men are easier to control. A man who justifies his choices is a man who has already accepted that his choices require external validation. And a man who requires external validation is a man who can be steered, redirected, manipulated, used. Every time your mother said explain yourself, every time a teacher demanded to know why, every time a girlfriend crossed her arms and waited for you to talk your way out of a decision you had every right to make, that was not curiosity. That was conditioning. They were installing software in you. Software that says, your decisions are not valid until someone else approves them. And you have been running that software your entire adult life. Think about the last week. How many times did someone question a choice you made and you immediately began constructing a defense? Not because you were wrong, because you were trained to respond to doubt with justification. Trained like a dog that hears a bell and starts salivating. The bell rings, the doubt appears, and you start explaining. Pavlov would be proud. Machiavelli would be disgusted. Because Machiavelli understood something that the modern world has deliberately buried. He understood that explanation is not a bridge between people. It is a trapdoor beneath the person doing the explaining. When you explain a decision, you are not clarifying. You are negotiating. You are opening the floor for debate on something that was never up for debate. You are telling the other person, this decision is still malleable. Push hard enough, and I might change it. This is why people keep pushing you. Not because they do not understand your reasons. Because your willingness to give reasons tells them the door is still open. Close the door. Not with anger. Not with rudeness. Not with some puffed-up performance of toughness that fools no one. Close it with silence. Silence is the most threatening sound a man can make. Not because it is aggressive, because it is complete. A man who says nothing after making a decision has communicated something that no amount of words can match. He has communicated that the decision is final, that his internal process is sufficient, that your opinion, while noted, was never a variable in his equation. This is not cruelty. This is sovereignty. And most men have never experienced it because they have been too busy explaining. Let me show you what this looks like in practice, because theory means nothing if you cannot deploy it. A man at work makes a decision about how to handle a project. His colleague questions it. The trained man, the domesticated man, immediately starts explaining his reasoning. He walks through the logic. He addresses potential concerns preemptively. He offers alternatives he already considered and rejected. He essentially holds court to justify a decision he has already made to someone who has no authority over it. The colleague listens, nods, then says, "Yeah, but what about this other approach?" And the explaining man feels his stomach tighten because now he has to explain more. The trapdoor opened. Now he is falling. The sovereign man handles it differently. The colleague questions the decision. The sovereign man says, "I have considered the options. This is what we are doing." And he says nothing else. He does not fill the silence. He does not preemptively address objections. He lets the silence sit there like a wall. The colleague feels it. The wall, the completeness, and something shifts in their body language. They straighten up slightly. They nod, not because they agree, because they recognize that this decision is not a negotiation. It is a fact. That shift, that moment where the other person's body adjusts to your authority, that is what you have been giving away every time you explained yourself. Robert Greene wrote about this in Law 4. Always say less than necessary. But most men read that law and think it means being brief. It does not. It means being complete. There is a difference between a man who talks less because he is trying to follow a rule and a man who talks less because he has nothing to prove. People feel the difference. They feel it in their chest, and they respond accordingly. Now, here is where this gets darker. Because I promised you the truth, not comfort. You know why you explain? You know the real reason? Not the one you tell yourself about being a good communicator or a reasonable person. You explain because you are afraid. Afraid that if people do not understand your reasons, they will think less of you. Afraid that your decisions, standing alone without a fortress of justification around them, are not strong enough to survive contact with another person's doubt. Afraid that silence makes you look stupid, or cold, or arrogant. Let me dismantle those fears one at a time. The fear that people will think less of you. They already do. Not because of your decisions, because of your explaining. Every time you justify, you leak status. You communicate that you are subordinate to their judgment. The people you are trying to impress are not impressed by your reasoning. They are noting, consciously or not, that you felt the need to provide it. That note goes into a mental file labeled, "This person can be pressured." The fear that your decisions cannot stand alone. If your decisions require a support structure of words to remain upright, the problem is not the silence. The problem is the decisions. A decision made with conviction does not need scaffolding. It stands like a column. You do not see a column explaining why it is holding up the ceiling. The fear that silence makes you look stupid. Silence makes you look dangerous. There is a profound difference. A stupid man has nothing to say. A dangerous man has everything to say, and chooses not to. People cannot tell the difference in the first 3 seconds. But by the 5th second of silence, they start to realize they are dealing with someone who is choosing restraint, not experiencing emptiness. And that realization changes how they position themselves relative to you. If you are still listening, you are not like the ones who clicked away. You are the kind of man who can hear hard things without running. So let me tell you something harder. Subscribe now. Not because I am asking nicely, because every mechanism I am about to reveal builds on the ones before it, and the men who commit to this channel are the ones who actually implement what they learn. Subscribing is not a favor to me. It is a declaration to yourself that you are done explaining your existence to people who never earned the right to question it. Do it now. Here is the part they will never tell you on the other channels. The ones with the soft music and the gentle advice about being assertive. Explaining is not just weakness. It is a weapon. But it is a weapon pointed at your own head. When you explain yourself to someone, you give them your reasoning, and your reasoning is your architecture. It is the blueprint of how you think, what you value, what you fear, what you prioritize. When you hand someone your blueprint, you hand them a map to your vulnerabilities. Sun Tzu understood this before Machiavelli did. Never let the enemy know your disposition. Your reasoning is your disposition. It is the terrain of your mind. And you have been handing out copies to anyone who asks. Every manipulator you have ever encountered learned to manipulate you through the explanations you volunteered. They did not break into your mind. You held the door open and gave them a guided tour. You showed them what makes you defensive. You showed them what makes you insecure. You showed them exactly which buttons to press because you labeled every button while you were explaining yourself. This is why narcissists love over-explainers. You are their favorite type of person, not because you are weak, because you are transparent. You lay out your internal logic like a buffet and then wonder why someone used it against you. Stop serving the buffet. Nietzsche wrote something that most people quote without understanding. He said, "The man who despises himself still respects himself as a man who despises." That sounds like philosophy. It is actually a blueprint for understanding why you cannot stop explaining. You explain because at some level, you despise your own authority. You do not trust it. You do not believe it deserves to exist without external confirmation. So you seek that confirmation through explanation. You lay out your case like a defendant and wait for the jury to nod. But here is what Nietzsche understood. Even in that self-contempt, there is a fragment of power. Because the fact that you despise it means you recognize it exists. Your authority is real. Your self-contempt has not destroyed it. It has only buried it under layers of compulsive explanation. We are digging it out today. But before we go further, let me tell you something truly ugly about the explaining habit. Something the self-help channels will never say because it would offend their audience. The people you explain yourself to do not want understanding. They want control. Read that again. When your partner says, "Why did you do that?" they are not seeking information. They already have a theory. What they want is for you to enter the courtroom they have constructed in their mind, stand at the podium, and plead your case while they sit in judgment. The question is the summons. Your explanation is the guilty plea. And you enter that courtroom every single time, voluntarily, eagerly. Because the software tells you that good men explain, that responsible men justify, that lovable men make themselves transparent. No, controllable men do those things. And you have been controllable your entire life. Let me make this even more uncomfortable. Think about the last argument you had with someone who matters to you. Think about how quickly you started defending yourself. Not because your position was weak, because your need for their approval was stronger than your commitment to your own authority. That is the hierarchy you have built inside yourself. Their comfort above your sovereignty, their understanding above your autonomy, their nod of approval above your own conviction. That hierarchy is an abomination, and you built it with your own hands every time you opened your mouth when silence would have served you better. The truly powerful men in history, the ones whose names survived centuries, did not explain because they understood something primal. Explanation is prey behavior. In the animal kingdom, prey displays itself. It makes noise. It signals. It communicates its position, its intentions, its vulnerabilities. Predators do the opposite. They go silent. They watch. They reveal nothing until the moment of action. You have been displaying yourself like prey and wondering why predators keep finding you. Robert Greene observed this pattern across hundreds of historical figures. The ones who fell, the ones whose empires crumbled, whose reputations dissolved, whose legacies evaporated, almost all shared one fatal trait. They explained too much. They believed that if they could just make people understand, they would be safe. They were wrong. Understanding does not create safety. It creates vulnerability. Because once someone understands you, they own the map to your destruction. The ones who survived, they were opaque, unreadable. Their silence was not emptiness, it was armor. And no army in history has ever defeated a man it could not read. You are readable. Right now, today, you are an open book. And everyone in your life knows exactly which page to turn to when they need to manipulate you. Let me give you the mechanics, because I do not deal in motivation, I deal in mechanism. The first thing you must understand is the difference between informing and explaining. These are not the same action, but most men treat them identically, and the confusion is destroying their authority. Informing is top-down. It is a transfer of necessary data from someone who has decided to someone who needs to execute. We are launching on Thursday. That is informing. It requires no response. It is not an invitation. Explaining is bottom-up. It is a subordinate justifying their position to a superior. We are launching on Thursday because the metrics show that engagement peaks on Thursdays, and the team has confirmed readiness, and I checked with marketing and they said, that is explaining. That is a man on his knees dressed in a suit. Most men explain when they should inform. They add reasons where none were requested. They provide context that nobody asked for. They do this because the silence after a clean statement feels dangerous. It feels like a gap that might be filled with judgment. Let the gap exist. The gap is your power. Marcus Aurelius governed the most powerful empire in human history and wrote his private thoughts in a journal that was never meant to be read. Nowhere in those meditations will you find him justifying his decisions to others. What you will find is a man wrestling with himself, questioning himself, holding himself accountable to his own standards. That is the crucial distinction. Self-examination is strength. External justification is weakness. The sovereign man questions himself ruthlessly in private and presents his conclusions without apology in public. Most men reverse this. They never question themselves in private and spend all their public energy justifying decisions they never properly examined. They are performing certainty while practicing doubt. Reverse it. Now let me tell you what happens in the body when you stop explaining, because this is not just psychological. It is physiological. When you explain yourself, your body enters a subtle submission posture. Your voice rises slightly in pitch. Your shoulders round forward almost imperceptibly. Your eye contact softens. Your hands become more active, gesturing, reaching, opening palms upward in a supplicating gesture that primatologists call the begging display. You are literally begging with your body while your words pretend to be confident. When you stop explaining and allow silence to hold your position, the opposite happens. Your voice drops, your shoulders settle, your eye contact becomes steady and direct, your hands become still, your breathing slows. Your body communicates what your words use to fumble towards certainty. And here is the thing about humans that no one wants to admit. We believe bodies more than words, always. A man who says, I have made my decision and then stands still with settled shoulders is believed. A man who says I have made my decision and then spends 4 minutes explaining why is doubted, not because of the words, because of the body. The explaining body contradicts the decisive words, and the observer's unconscious mind resolves the contradiction by believing the body. You have been sabotaging yourself with your own physiology. Every explanation triggers the submission cascade. Every silence triggers the authority cascade. And you have been choosing submission while wondering why no one respects you. Stop wondering, start choosing differently. There is a specific technique that Machiavelli embedded in The Prince that most readers overlook because it is not presented as advice. It is presented as observation. He noted that the princes who maintained power the longest were the ones who made their decisions appear inevitable rather than chosen. This is critical. When you explain a decision, you frame it as a choice. Choices can be questioned. Choices invite alternatives. Choices imply that other options existed, and you need to defend why this one was selected. When you state a decision without explanation, it begins to feel inevitable, not chosen, inevitable, like gravity. No one argues with gravity because gravity does not explain itself. It simply operates. Your decisions should operate the same way. We are going in this direction, not we are going in this direction because of X, Y, and Z. The first statement sounds like a law of physics. The second sounds like a proposal. Be the law, not the proposal. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, what is the one situation where you keep explaining yourself even though you know you should stop? Be specific. Not because I am curious, because naming it is the first step to killing it. The men in this community who comment are the men who implement. The ones who stay silent in the comments are usually the ones who stay silent in life. Prove me wrong. Now, I need to address something that your mind is already protesting. You are sitting there thinking, but what about relationships? What about my partner, my friends? Surely I need to explain things to the people close to me. No. You need to communicate with the people close to you. Communication and explanation are different species. Communication is, I need space tonight. That is a complete sentence. It transfers the relevant information. It respects both people. Explanation is, I need space tonight because work was really stressful. And I had this conversation with my manager that did not go well, and I am feeling overwhelmed, and I just think if I have some time alone I can decompress, and then I will be better company tomorrow. That is a confession. That is you emptying your vulnerabilities onto someone else's lap because you do not believe I need space is enough. It is enough. It was always enough. The person who requires the full confession before granting you space is not asking because they care. They are asking because your emotional architecture is their leverage. The more of it they can see, the more precisely they can maneuver you. Harsh? Yes. True? Also yes. This does not mean you never share your inner world with anyone. It means you share it because you choose to, not because someone demanded it as the price of accepting your decisions. There is a vast ocean between voluntary vulnerability and compulsive justification. Most men have never seen that ocean because they have been drowning in the justification since childhood. Viktor Frankl survived the concentration camps and wrote that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. What he did not write, but what is implicit in everything he observed, is that this freedom is exercised in silence. The choice happens internally. The man who has chosen does not announce the choosing. He simply lives differently. And other people feel the difference without being able to name it. That unnamed feeling is authority, and it can only be generated by silence. Let me tell you about the economy of words, because this is where most men go bankrupt without realizing it. Every word you speak is a withdrawal from your credibility account. Necessary words maintain the balance. Unnecessary words deplete it. Explanations are the most expensive words you can spend because they withdraw credibility while depositing doubt. Think about the men you respect most. I do not mean the men you like. I mean the men whose presence changes the room. The ones who speak and people lean in. The ones who make a statement and the conversation reorganizes around it like iron filings around a magnet. Those men are not charismatic because of what they say. They are charismatic because of what they do not say. The restraint creates pressure. The silence creates density. Their words carry weight because there are so few of them. Each one matters because they have proven, through consistent restraint, that they do not waste words. You are the opposite of that. And you know it. You speak to fill silence. You explain to prevent judgment. You justify to avoid conflict. And every word you spend cheapens the next one. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should be a miser with his words, the way a wise ruler is a miser with his treasury. Spend freely, and you are bankrupt within a year. Spend carefully, and every coin you release carries the weight of the vault behind it. Your vault is empty. We are going to refill it. And the only way to refill it is to stop spending. Here is your protocol, not a suggestion, a protocol. Because I am not interested in whether you want to do this. I am interested in whether you will. Starting tomorrow, when someone questions a decision you have made, you will respond with the decision and nothing else. No reasons, no context, no preemptive objection handling. Just the decision, stated once, clearly, and then silence. The silence will be uncomfortable. Your body will scream at you to fill it. Your training will kick in. The Pavlovian bell will ring and your mouth will want to open. Do not let it. Hold the silence for 5 seconds. Just 5. Count them internally if you must. 5 seconds of silence after a clean statement of decision will feel like an hour. It will feel aggressive. It will feel rude. It will feel like you are doing something wrong. You are doing something right for the first time. After those 5 seconds, the other person will do one of two things. They will accept the decision, or they will push again. If they push again, you repeat the decision, not louder, not with different words. The same words, the exact same words, as if you are a recording. We are going in this direction. But why? We are going in this direction. The repetition without elaboration sends a message that no amount of explaining could ever communicate. The message is, this is not a negotiation. I heard you. The answer has not changed, and it will not change regardless of how many times you ask. This technique has a name in negotiation theory. It is called the broken record, but that name makes it sound mechanical. It is not mechanical. It is architectural. You are building a wall, one repeated brick at a time, and the other person eventually stops running into it. Some people will not like this. Good. The people who are most disturbed by your silence are the people who benefited most from your explaining. They had access to your reasoning. Your reasoning gave them leverage. Your silence removes that leverage. And leverage, once tasted, is addictive. They will push harder. They will accuse you of being cold, secretive, arrogant, uncommunicative. Let them. Their accusations are withdrawal symptoms. They are addicted to your openness, and you have cut off the supply. The discomfort they feel is not your responsibility. Their ability to manipulate your reasoning was never their right. You are not taking something from them. You are reclaiming something they never should have had. Here is what will happen in the first week. I am telling you now so you do not mistake it for failure. Day 1. You will hold your silence after a decision and feel physically ill. Your heart rate will increase. Your palms will sweat. Your jaw will ache from the effort of keeping it shut. This is not anxiety. This is withdrawal. Your body is accustomed to the dopamine hit that comes from receiving approval after an explanation. You are cutting off the supply. The body protests. Day 3. Someone close to you will escalate. They will not just ask for an explanation. They will demand one. They will frame your silence as a personal attack. You never talk to me anymore. What is wrong with you? Why are you being like this? These are not questions. They are crowbars. They are trying to pry open the vault you have finally learned to close. Do not open it. By day 7, something shifts. The people who truly respect you will adjust. They will stop asking, not because they have given up on you, because they have recalibrated. They have recognized that you are no longer the man who can be accessed through a question. You are the man whose decisions arrive like weather observed, adapted to, never argued with. The people who do not adjust, those are the ones who never respected you. They respected your compliance. They respected your availability. They respected how easy you were to read, and therefore how easy you were to manage. Your silence revealed the truth about every relationship you have. Some will survive the revelation, some will not. Let the ones that cannot survive die. They were parasitic. They fed on your transparency. And a relationship that only functions when you are bleeding your architecture into someone else's hands is not a relationship. It is a harvesting operation. Machiavelli understood that every change in power creates enemies among those who profited from the old arrangement. When you stop explaining, you are changing the power arrangement. The people who profited from your vulnerability will resist. This resistance is not evidence that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are doing something right. The resistance means the power is shifting. Let it shift. I want to leave you with something that Machiavelli never actually wrote, but that lives in the space between every line of The Prince. The men who ruled were not the ones with the best explanations. They were the ones with the fewest. History does not remember the prince who carefully outlined his reasoning to every courtier. History remembers the prince who decided, acted, and let the results speak louder than any justification ever could. Your results are being silenced by your justifications. Your authority is being buried under your explanations. Your power is being drained every time you open your mouth to make someone comfortable with a decision that was yours to make. Stop. Not gradually, not partially. Stop. The next time someone questions a decision you have made, say nothing beyond the decision itself. Feel the discomfort. Feel the training screaming at you to explain. Feel the Pavlovian bell ringing in your chest. And choose silence anyway. Because silence is not the absence of words. It is the presence of power. And you have been absent from your own power for long enough. If this changed how you see yourself, hit the like button. Not for me, for the algorithm. So this reaches the men who are still explaining their way through life, giving away their architecture to anyone who asks, and wondering why the world treats them like an open book anyone can read and put back on the shelf. They need this, and the like button is how it reaches them. This is your cold awakening.